So, did anything happen today that's interesting? How's everybody's day going? It should be quite good. Anyway, we're all here to talk about Nick Saban calling it quits. And what does that mean for Ole Miss, honestly? We'll talk about that a little bit. And we'll get into the chat and kind of socially intervene for about the next half hour or so. I have SEC After Dark tonight on the YouTube channel, on the SEC After Dark YouTube channel. You can catch there. We'll have Corey Burt and Jeb Beecham, and we'll be talking about this pretty much for that hour as well. But I did want to come on this channel and talk a little bit about that as well. Anyway, this is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Nick Saban has called it quits. And I mean, I just sit here and think back of everything that's happened, and make no mistake, okay? This isn't a situation to where we're going to talk down about belittle what Alabama's job is and belittle anyway what Nick Saban's career would have been like. He quite simply is the best that has ever done it and the best that potentially will ever do it. And I compare this job coming open to kind of like a tornado for your program. It's going to hit somebody. It's going to seem somewhat random, but the damage path is not going to be that wide. So there's probably a good chance that you are going to escape unharmed. It's going to take a little bit of bad luck to get hit really by the tornado. I mean, we've seen reports already. Everybody's asking about Lane Kiffin, and that's because Lane wants this job. Just real quick before we start, everybody wants this job. Everybody. It's not a situation to where you are or are you not interested in your job. Everybody wants this job, and Alabama gets to pick and choose who they think the candidate's going to be. After Bear Bryant left Alabama in the early 80s, I was a small child, but I do remember a little bit the Ray Perkins era, to where Alabama decided they wanted the program to go a different way. And they went and found Ray Perkins and got him to go over what was a 20-year run under Bear Bryant. And that was kind of disastrous. And, you know, they still had good coaches in the end, but it wasn't nearly the same thing. I think something similar could happen here. You do not want to be the coach that replaces Nick Saban. Somebody is going to do it, but Alabama is going to pick and choose and put their guy in on the throne. They will. Rumor is on the last round, they talking about Dan Lanning being the first person that's going to have the opportunity to say no. I think he makes about $7 million at Oregon. Decent money, but that's nothing that Alabama can't pay, considering Nick Saban was making pretty close to double that whenever you consider incentives and bonuses. So we'll see exactly how that goes. Now, my thought on the Lane Kiffin situation, and this is an Ole Miss show, everybody is going to be worried about Lane Kiffin. Yeah, I think Lane Kiffin would be interested in that job. I don't think that's much of a secret. That said, because of what I said earlier, I think a lot of people are going to have to say no before Lane Kiffin becomes a legitimate candidate for the Alabama job. I think Dan Lanning, I think Glenn Schumann, that Nick Saban, Kirby Smart tree of defensive coordinators, you can see that they're going there. And I don't know if there's a succession plan in place in Alabama. It feels like there's one. But we will see exactly what happens. Lane Kiffin was in Jacksonville today, almost got a commitment from Logan Diggs. We talked about running backs earlier in the week. They did get a commitment from Logan Diggs, and Lane Kiffin today was in Jacksonville, and I want to know which player was in Jacksonville that they were visiting with. Really interesting about that as well. So we're going to just sit in the chat, and we're going to take questions, and we're just going to hang out for the next 25, 30 minutes or so. But that is my thoughts on the Alabama job. I do not think that Ole Miss fans have anything to worry about Lane Kiffin. Now, I could be completely wrong, and they can miss what's happening. It just doesn't feel like that's the direction they are going. Now, I realize that Ole Miss fans are nervous about losing potentially the best coach they had since Johnny Vaught. I get that. So there's some anxiety involved with that. And other schools that are close to Ole Miss, including the school beneath us and LSU and all that, they're praying like heck that Lane Kiffin goes. So you get a lot of people putting a lot of gasoline on the fire to try and stir up some stuff, basically some high-level trolling. But in the reality, right now, I don't think there's any reason to worry about what's going on. I think it could get there if 10 or 15 people said no. But in that short list of 4 or 5 candidates, I just don't think Lane Kiffin's on there at the moment for whatever reason. I think he's a polarizing figure in their booster base. Good coach, perfect for Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin's getting paid. He can do what he wants to, all of that. Ole Miss is a fine job that he'd be crazy to leave it. But I do understand the allure of being at the gold standard of college football. And so I'm not going to discount and say, oh, this person's not going to be interested in the job, because I genuinely think either a coach is interested in the job or they're lying. That is my opinion. That's honestly a lot of credit to what Nick Saban has built. So let's go into the chat. Don't forget to, in the chat, put the conversation where you're watching the show from. And we will talk about that. Let's see. Hottie Toddy from Louisville, the Lane train will pick up steam. Absolutely. No, that's not true. Bama's downfall has begun. Yeah, there's a very big Bear Bryant type situation that is going on. I think Alabama fans figure that out as well. Kalen from Birmingham, Bama fans are in shambles and Auburn fans might as well be national champions. I absolutely, I think, yeah, I can see that entirely. AJ Gardner, Lane isn't going anywhere. He's building a top program and now is the opportunity to do great things. Logan Diggs just committed today as well. Absolutely right. I agree with 100% of that. That's the reason I said that I do not think Ole Miss fans at this point needs to worry. That said, Alabama is going to be able to hire whichever coach they want to hire, period. It doesn't matter who they are. So I compare it to kind of like a tornado to where the damage path could hit. Hunter Beasley says, who are our top Bama targets? I think Caleb Odom, obviously, the young freshman that signed with Alabama, and Ole Miss was kind of his number 2. I think that's somebody to watch for. And if the rumor of Dan Lanning is true, all of a sudden you have 2 top 5-ish rosters that can enter the transfer portal. So you have to think that you're probably going to find a running back as well. So it's a lot of good situation happening at just the right time for Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, honestly. Kalen Dempsey and all my Bama friends are thinking they're going to take Lane from us. I hope not. I don't think they're even looking that direction. I've seen names over and over again, and it just feels like Dan Lanning is the first call. And honestly, if he's the first call, I bet you Dan Lanning says yes. So simple as that. Lane is licking his chops for Alabama transfers. Yeah, everybody needs to be aware that Lane Kiffin does his best work from about January 15th to about January 31st in the transfer portal. Ole Miss does work in that period. And now you could have potentially 2 top 5 teams with a roster in open season. And including an Oregon team, you can go after, let's just say, running backs, and there's some high-level players on that roster as well. Chris Stanfield, like we should gut the Baba roster. I think that means Bama. Everybody's going to go after it. Caleb Downs, the safety at Alabama, is about to get paid. He is about to get paid. It's going to be like Christmas morning for Caleb Downs. Seriously. Does that put us back in the boat for Caleb Odom? You'd have to think so, since they can just transfer away. Yeah. And especially since Ole Miss hasn't started school. Jacob Holloway, Dan Lanning is my guess. That's mine as well. In my opinion right now, and this is just my opinion, it's not even an educated one. I think that Dan Lanning is the head football coach at Texas A&M right now if he didn't know this was coming. That's my thought. What do you think about Diggs from LSU committing to Ole Miss from Mark Covington? I like Logan Diggs. I really like Logan Diggs. I talked about him on Monday's show. I think he's a plus Snoop Connor. Now, he got hurt in the bowl game, and there's a chance he's going to come to Ole Miss, and I think the rumor is maybe red shirt or something like that, or come in at the end of the season. but not play enough to burn that red shirt, if that makes sense. And if that is the case, you are still in the market for a running back, but I do like Logan Diggs a whole lot. I just can't see Bama letting Kiffin have control over every aspect like he does in Oxford. Yeah, what they need to realize in a situation like this, okay? What they need to know is it took some work for Nick Saban to clear out the boosters. And whenever that power goes away and people can start grabbing for influence and things, it's going to be difficult for the next guy to even have anywhere close to that. And that's the reason a Ray Perkins type situation happens. And the same thing's going to happen this time because it happens in every situation where a long-term coach that's highly successful leaves. Every one of them. And you never want to be the coach that follows the coach. You want to be the coach that follows the coach that follows the coach. That is what you are looking for. I honestly pity the guy that follows Nick Saban, honestly. Nathan Rutherford, thank you for doing this. Rebel fans are already freaking out. I feel like Lane is at home because Ole Miss fits him. He wouldn't be able to be himself in Bama. It's in Ripley, Mississippi, and Hotty Toddy. Yeah, I agree. I mean, Lane could not be Lane and do what he's doing right now anywhere but here. He completely has the Ole Miss football program. He is the Ole Miss football program. And he's recruiting at a high level, and they're getting ready to win at a high level. And you're at the point where you have a chance to take a step past the gold standard in college football. And that's kind of a good situation, honestly. Kalen Dempsey, some people in Bama think Vrabel is a good choice for them. Okay. Kalen, I know that you're kind of making a joke or everything, but he kind of is. He is from that Bill Belichick, Nick Saban tree of coaching. So where there is some continuity, I could see something like that coming from the NFL into college. A coach, Nick Saban, came from the Miami Dolphins to Alabama. Pete Carroll went to Seattle. But, he can do his thing. I think there might be a draw and a segment of the fan base that kind of wants to do what they did last time. And Vrabel kind of is the Nick Saban of this year's coaching carousel class. But I get what you're saying. That's a joke. We need to pull players now from Swamp Puppy. Yeah, as soon as the retirement's official and the portal gets open, you're going to see open season on that roster. That is the best roster that was created in college football. I don't care that Michigan won the national championship. Alabama was a quarterback away from being really, really good. And people getting into the portal and doing stuff like that, that is going to start. People are probably tampering as we speak right now. Like the 2 5-star running backs they have, there's going to be people that's trying to pick apart that roster like crazy. Ole Miss in trouble. Lane Kiffin will take the job. Lane Kiffin has to be offered the job before he can take the job. Is there a shot that Zachary Franklin remains a Reb? Hotty Toddy from Connecticut. Douglas Sherman. He's on the roster. Ole Miss updated the roster, and that's actually tomorrow morning's show that I did. I talk about Zachary Franklin and John Saunders still being on the Ole Miss roster. And that is listed with Zachary Franklin as a red shirt, which he got last season. So I think that is interesting as well. Swamp Puppy, the mighty Bama decline starts now. Kareem Jackson, is Caleb Odom back in play? He's already signed. He would have to transfer, but in college football these days, that just doesn't matter, honestly. Pocket-sized mom, I'm not too worried about Kiffin to Bama. I could see him at Texas if Sark goes to Bama. Sark's not going to Bama either. I think neither one of the Sark or Kiffin, the USC guys, are viewed as Central Saban guys. They're viewed as Pete Carroll guys. And honestly, because they kind of are Pete Carroll guys. The Nick Saban guys is from the Kirby Smart tree. So you have like Glenn Schumann, Dan Lanning, those guys. Also, I would not be surprised to see Alabama, if it gets down to it, if some people say no, if Alabama makes a run at Mike Norvell. That one would not surprise me at all. Jimbo Fisher doesn't have anything to do right now. Rick and Bonnie, you're an Alabama fan, and I don't think you want to wish that on anybody at the moment. Austin Ferguson, I think Lane retires in Oxford. I think he would be crazy to leave, especially at this point where so much good can happen. I don't think he's going anywhere. D. Davis, whoever goes there next will have an impossible standard to live up to. It'll be a grind. You are absolutely true there. You're telling the truth there. Dugout says Lane has it going on right now in Oxford, Mississippi. That's true as well. Jackson Williams, I agree with you, Steve, but do you think Golding would be the head coach? If the unlikely happens, honestly, if for some reason, if Alabama got all those no's, took Lane Kiffin, I think Golding would have the first opportunity to turn it down, honestly, if something like that happened. But right now, it's like this next comment. Lane has too much momentum here. From AJ Gardner. He's assembled one heck of a roster, and his quarterback room is set for the next 3 years with the 12-team playoff. We can be contenders every year and also one of the best NIL collectives. That's not wrong. T-Boy Lynch, Birmingham, Hottie Toddy, Lanning, or Vrabel? Is Vrabel a mistake? I can see how Vrabel would work at Alabama. I think he would grind enough. I think he's professional enough. I think he can do the built by Bama stuff. Now, I don't know if he has the obsessive personality that Nick Saban has. But I think that would work. It's from the Bill Belichick tree, just like Nick Saban. It's a chance to run it back to what you did with the Miami Dolphins in, 2006? I'm not saying it wouldn't work, honestly. I mean, that intrigues the heck out of me. And Dan Lanning, I like that one as well. And then Glenn Schumann is probably the third, which it'd be weird to see Alabama hire an assistant coach, but they really like that guy. Brian Reeves, Hottie Toddy from Amory. Tony Wedgeworth, Lane has total control of Ole Miss. At Bama, he won't. He's not going anywhere. Hottie Toddy from Raleigh, Mississippi. Raleigh, Mississippi, right down the road from Wanta High School in McGee. Lane Kiffin wants to win a championship next season. He was asked how to beat Georgia next season, and Kiffin said they got to look like Georgia, and that's what they're doing. HYDR Hottie Toddy. I agree with that 100%. Chris Davis says Hottie Toddy from Brandon. Portal is now open for 30 more days with the Bama players. And don't forget, if Bama hires Dan Lanning, that also includes 30 days on Oregon's roster as well, especially right at the end of the month when Lane Kiffin does a ton of work. We need more on O-line. We're probably going to be finished on the O-line by Friday. I'm just serious there. They're going to have 3 signees by this weekend, likely, total on the offensive line. Brandon Martin from Tupelo, the thing for Lane to remember, if he has one bad year at Bama, he'd be gone. Lane stays at Ole Miss, and we win a game or two in the playoff, a Kiffin statue will be built. He hasn't made it Ole Miss. I think he knows that. I think he knows after what went on with Auburn. I think he gets that now. He's seen it a little bit. Mark Covington says, an everydayer here from Pontotoc, Mississippi, Hottie Toddy. What's your take on Diggs? Is he a primary type running back or more of a mix with Bentley and Riscano? I think he's a plus Snoop Connor. He has not rushed for over 600 or 700 yards in his career. Now, he tore his ACL, I think, in the bowl game. So they're going to have to deal with that as well. But what I think Kiffin is playing chess, not checkers here, okay? I think he's going to have the surgery and his rehab and all that, and he'll be ready for 2025 to play a full season, but he'll also be ready to play the last 2 or 3 games of the football season and into the playoffs where you can play those players and not burn a red shirt, and you can have him for 2 years when he has 1 year of eligibility. I think chess, but not checkers right now, is being played by Lane Kiffin. Ryan Williams just decommitted from Bama. Yeah, he was slated to sign in February. He's going to go to Auburn, by the way. Ryan Coggins, how fast do you think it will take Bama to hire someone? I think this is what I think happened. Like I said, what sourcing I have in the Alabama options is minuscule to none. Okay. But this is what I think happened. I think after the Alabama-Michigan game, Nick Saban told the athletic director he was done. So that was January 1st. They had 9 days to orchestrate this and let Nick Saban announce it. Now, I think that Alabama is already down. All of the pre-work has been done. And now they're going out to try and find their guy, to work down their short list. I think it's pretty known what their short list is. And I don't think anybody was blindsided by this. So I think you'll see Alabama make a hire in 7 to 10 days, potentially. If it goes longer than that, if it goes past the late signing day, it could all fall apart, recruiting class and roster on Alabama's team. And with the 30-day get into the portal that can happen, I think there has to be a plan in place to mitigate that. Kiffin is setting up a championship team, hotty toddy. Could Jaheim Otis come home? That'd be a player to watch, honestly. That'd be a player to watch. Jerry Scruggs is in Amory, Mississippi. Hunter Prather from Boonville just say, Kiffin did take the Bama job. Could our players that are signed leave as well? I think so. Yeah. I think players can leave until they get enrolled in school, honestly. Kiffin would leave for Bama in a pine box. That's the wrong school. Kind of funny, though. Saban and Belichick are going to meet up and coach somewhere. I like it. Kenneth Ford, a major newspaper in Alabama, maybe in T-Town itself, mentioned five, the guy at Oregon, maybe Florida State's coach. He was mentioned. They mentioned this information on 560 and Memphis. Yeah, I literally, there's a short list right now. I do not think Lane's on it. Aaron Macon says, I do not see Lane going yet, maybe after the next guy, but being the head coach right after the GOAT has the most pressure ever. Go for it all here, then move on from Mansfield, Texas. You're probably pretty right. Rumor has it Morgan Freeman is a candidate of Bama Almighty. I think that's a Bruce Almighty joke. Very good, James. Reed Hell says, hotty toddy from Yazoo City. Troy Davis says, stop worrying, fellow Rebels. Lane is happy where he is, and he's got the keys to the kingdom at Ole Miss and has built a crazy good roster, and he's truly happy where he is. Columbus, Mississippi. You're not wrong. You're not exactly wrong. Ole Miss got itself. They went through the Auburn situation so they could handle this situation and had a fighting chance if it came down to it. Like I said, Alabama can have any coach in the country they want. Either a coach says they're interested in that job or they're lying. But I do think this is like a tornado type situation. There is going to be a school somewhere where the damage is severe, but it's going to be targeted and really narrow, and it almost like bad luck it hitting you. And I don't think Ole Miss is that school at the moment. I think Oregon might be that school. Heck, if they take the Titans, there's not even a dominoes that might fall at the college level. James McDonald says, hotty toddy from Alabama. Randy Wilbanks, hotty toddy from Walnut, Mississippi. I really hope Lane stays in Oxford and builds his legacy at Ole Miss. I don't see anything that makes me think otherwise, honestly. Summer Adams, if Kiffin leaves everything he built for next year, I don't know what to say. I don't think so. We get you live twice tonight. Yes, Daniel Parker at 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central. We will be live on SEC After Dark with Corey Burton and Jeb Beecham. And I don't know if we're going to have Jake Thomas from Tide Talk live because he is supposed to have his daughter delivered at some point in time this week. So real interesting about that. Logan Diggs committed today. Really good player. I talked about that. I think he's a plus Snoop Connor. Tight leash, unreal expectations, and you can't create your own legacy. And also, one of the big selling points is do something that's never been done before. So it's obvious Lane Kiffin keeps saying that over and over again. Do something that's never been done before. Obviously, Lane would fit, but hear me out. Urban Meyer. That's hilarious. Charles in Vicksburg says, how about the head coach from the NFL the Titans fired? Vrabel. It didn't take long for Feinbaum for potential hires that Kiffin rolled out this month. Yeah, like I said, the more I say Vrabel, the more it kind of makes sense. It's kind of running back what they did with Nick Saban. Now they would have to give Vrabel the keys to the kingdom for it to work, but we'll see how it goes. Eddie Simmons says the lane train is rolling. Dan is the man for Alabama. I think that as well. I think potentially Dan Lanning by the weekend. I think this is going to be incredibly fast. Nathan Rutherford, oh crap, I forgot all about Belichick leaving New England. He could be a contender for that job. That would be absolutely hilarious. That one would be hilarious. Wonder if we can pull Caleb Downs. I think this from Sutter Ledbetter. I think Caleb Downs might be a little bit too expensive. Because Caleb Downs about to get paid, just straight paid. Gary Rasco, any news on Tyler Barron? He's fine. He's committed, all thing. He's moved into his place in Oxford. He tweeted that the finish line checkered flag today. So Tyler Barron, he is in the joy, in the house. Everyday listener, love your show. Hope Wayne stays. Right now, I'm seeing nothing that would make me think he was not. Mark Covington, I know Judkins' history, but have you heard anything what he got from NIL, Ohio State? Just curious if anything had to do with money and why he left and all of his attitude and all of that stuff. Just remember, NIL deals, when you hear a dollar amount, all NIL deals have an NDA attached to them to where they're not allowed to talk about that amount to anybody. And nobody is going to be willing to lose and put their NIL money by letting On3 or Joe the plumber or any of those guys know what's going on. So take it with a grain of salt. People are acting like they know. They've heard rumors. There might be a game of telephone, but those numbers they're pretty fake, honestly. Tyler Barron is Oxford. He's enrolled. Mike Sprague says, go Rebs. Chase Wheeler says, with Saban retiring right now, the coaching carousel will be turning really fast. I hope Kiffin stays, especially with all the talent he has returning for next season. Remember, on this whole Kiffin thing, they have to find a school that is willing to pay him north of $10 million. And you have to find a place that he doesn't have to rebuild because they are so close to what's going on. The Venn diagram of places he could go is not very big at the moment. Michael Perriello from Sarasota, Florida. Bama friend just told me Kirby Smart to Bama. I'm telling you, there is literally no coach in the country that is safe from this Bama job. This is college or NFL. Nobody is safe. Bama can have who they want to, and they've earned that over the last few years. Les Miles needs a job. I think we'd all take that one. Rachel Stroud says, heard Bill Belichick is on a flight to Tuscaloosa as he speaks. Bill is like 75 years old. Case and Hubbard, Kiffin never lined up Judkins and Bentley in the backfield together. If he lines up Bentley and Diggs together, it will be completely different wrinkled in the offense that has not been seen. He did run 20 personnel in the Texas Bowl a little bit with Zach Evans and Judkins. Bird says Kiffin's gone. He's coming back. Monster car. You almost got me there, buddy. Lane is staying in Oxford. He knows he goes to Alabama. He has one heck of a coach to follow. Maybe Vrabel can go to Philly. Tom Brady to Alabama. Scott White says, I think Stephen called it right. Most likely Lanning has already been talking to Bama, and that's why he turned down Texas A&M. Yeah, this all feels orchestrated and choreographed. From the moment Nick Saban bought his retirement house in August or July in Palm Beach, Florida, these dominoes have been falling, if you think about it. There's signs that have happened all through this year that it was going down. I think people that were close to Nick Saban knew what was going on. I wonder if Tom Brady will be a coach one day. I don't know. Brian Keith says, you tripping. Dan Lanning may not take the job. Kiffin might get the job. And Santa Claus might get the job. I mean, if we're going to play hypotheticals, let's go. Dan Lanning, Jeff Brom. That's actually an interesting hire, but I don't know if he'd leave Louisville. But like I said, every coach is on the table with the Alabama job open. Paul Haney says, I'm curious who will be able to complete this quote. And the Rebound Coach of the Year award goes to, that is true. I'm not worried about Lane leaving. Natty coming in 2024. Speaking of collective, shout out to the Grove Collective. Absolutely. Hello from Ocean Springs, Mississippi. Go Rebs. Thank you very much. I honestly think that everybody in Bama knew this was coming. I'm pretty sure they've been preparing like everything. Saban already probably has handpicked the next coach. I mean, all of that makes sense. All of that makes a ton of sense. If this moves as quickly as I think it will, it's going to be interesting. Alchemy DMS, Hottie Toddy from New Jersey. Lane can build his own legacy in Oxford by staying the course, building the culture, and picking up the fallout from Bama. Princely made a tweet to Kiffin about not getting any ideas. I saw that. That's from James McDonald. That's pretty funny. Let's see. We got a bunch of people in the chat and everything's going on. Now, we're going to move over because here in less than an hour, you can go to the SEC After Dark YouTube channel and you have Corey Burton, you have me, you have Jeb Beecham, and potentially somebody from Alabama, and we're going to continue this conversation, okay? Right now, it's just me. I just wanted my Ole Miss people to get on here and see what's going on and honestly just put a face to me not being worried. Because tomorrow morning is not going to be a show about Lane Kiffin and Nick Saban and all of that. It's going to be about the hype train that is happening. Now, Friday might be a little bit different, but it is not something that we're just going to force feed down the throat. I'm just not about doing that. But I did want to get on here so everybody can see my face and let me know that, no, I'm not worried about it, or no, I'm not putting my head in the sand or anything like that. So that's the reason we did the live stream. Tune in to SEC After Dark on the SEC After Dark YouTube channel, and we will continue this conversation there. Hope everybody has a good time. Check out the show. We'll see you then. Hotty toddy.